the company. It's a very small task, but the projects we do, it will help you to answer questions in interviews for sure. That's what I feel. That's my personal experience. And my friend, like she's a close friend of mine, Kajal. I think you guys met her as well. So yeah, we both prepared together, and we both used to do projects. Choose your project part. I don't know how you guys are doing, like individual or project partners. So whatever you have, try to do more and more projects. If you're stuck, don't spend too much time on it. Ask someone. Ask like your whoever is your team lead. Do more projects. It will help you. And in the real world industry, it's a you will feel like someone, maybe you don't know anything, they'll catch you, but the thing is they also don't want to go over the process of hiring someone again. So if we are learning from scratch, that would be fine as well. Just spend like hour and a half or 2 hours after your job to to learn new things. Maybe it's a PowerShell scripting or Python, something like that.
So you spent that much only time, Daman?
Right now, oh, earlier I used to spend a lot of hours, but right now, after I work like nine to five, after that I spend like 2 hours learning, like every day. On the weekends, I spend more hours. Uh, on the Udemy, I try to do more and more courses uh, in different languages. Scripting, for me, scripting is the main thing, like PowerShell, uh, and try to learn more bicep, which we are not used to. So if you are in marketing, stick to your resume. And in my couple of interviews, I didn't pass the interview. The reason being, whatever they say, I used to agree, oh yes, I know this. But the third one, I got a little bit more confident. And be firm, I would say, because I came from India as well, so sometimes we have a different kind of a perspective. What do you mean by confident? And it slightly leads towards little rudeness, to be honest with you. But be firm, like whatever you say. So if you're confident enough that you know Terraform, that you tell, yes, I know Terraform. But if you don't know anything, you can just tell them that I don't know this thing, and that should be totally fine. So stick to your resume. If there are, like, for example, monitoring tools, if you haven't worked using Prometheus, Grafana, that is fine. You can just tell them I have a basic knowledge on it. I can learn, but never get a chance to work on it, and that is totally fine. Even in the interview, for me, it was a working session. I have to find something and then create it. So for the loggings, I couldn't find it. There are like four things to do. I did only two. But the thing is, I got the big points. The smaller points I didn't knew. Still, I got hired. There are like six people they were interviewing. Still, they got me. The reason being, I found the big point. So, and the thing is, the projects, they helped me to find that root cause, because I did a similar kind of a project. So that's how I was able to do it.
Hi, Daman.
Hi, Gurvinder.
Congratulations on your job and completing 3 months.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to know about your SRE interview experience because for SRE, I have attended one interview and mostly they will focus on monitoring, I guess.
Yep.
And it was really difficult for me because they were asking really real time, real time monitoring,
Mhm.
like what certain commands you will use to collect certain logs. So, how was your experience? How difficult it was? And
So for the monitoring, it really depends on the tool. If someone has New Relic in your resume, I say use New Relic. And if you have Azure Monitor, so you can use that as well. Uh, with the New Relic, if someone asks, what do you use? Uh, like how do you configure? So there is a config file on every server for every application. You can tell them that we have certain number of applications, and for each application we are hosting under IIS. So that is the web server. So each application has its own New Relic config file. So during the deployment process, what you do, you add a step, and that step, it's a template. During the release of your application, you add the New Relic step, uh, so that it will be installed and report to the New Relic. And if you want to make any changes, that will be .config file, that is New Relic config file. That's how you connect your application to the New Relic. And then you create a dashboard or whatever
Okay.
out of the box functionality you give you.
Mhm. I mean, how was your interview for SRE? Like, how did you handle it?
So for me also, it was mostly towards the monitoring. So usually they ask me what is my environment, how many resources group, like what kind of
Yeah.
infrastructure we had. I told them it's about hybrid, so on-prem and Azure Cloud. Then they talked about monitoring. So monitoring, and if it comes to containers, so I told them I was using Azure Container Apps. So it's not AKS, it's not
Okay.
Kubernetes, it's Azure Container Apps. And that's what I told them because I know about that thing. So you can use anyone. The thing is, they had a similar Azure Container App infrastructure. They showed me their infrastructure on the POC environment, and they asked me, how do you log this? How do you send this thing? So now the problem is with the Azure Container Apps, you cannot directly send the logs to the log analytics workspace or to the New Relic. So you have to do through the Azure Container App environment, not through the direct apps. So
Okay.
it has one environment in that you host applications and then you send the logs. And the problem is, again, you just have the logs.
Yeah.
It's really important to understand for the monitoring perspective that logs, it's totally one thing, but what you need as an SRE is a stack traces or the distribution traces. That's the most important stuff so that you can find the exact root cause of an error. So if your application is going down, your response time is high, your error rate is high, or your application is just shutting down. So to find the root cause, you need a distribution trace or the stack trace. Logs not gonna like easily help you. It's gonna take time to go through the logs. You can report incident, and after that you can create a team incident response team, and then they will debug. So that is good, but to quickly fix the issue, you need stack trace. So that functionality Azure Monitor right now doesn't provide. That's why we use New Relic. That's what I told them. And how do I do it? API. If anyone is showing Kubernetes or AKS in the Azure environment, I'd suggest you please use APIMs, APIMs. Read about it as much as you can. Um, the Udemy course, there is a Udemy course on that. Study APIMs because as per the industry standards, no cluster can go directly through AKS without using the APIMs. So they use APIMs because every company provides services, right? So study about APIMs and how do you send logs. And for my experience, I knew it, so that's how I figured it out.
So you prepared on Azure Monitor and New Relic,
Yes,
like for
that's
monitoring. Okay.
yeah.
So I totally skipped the New Relic because there was Datadog also in my resume. So I was preparing on Datadog. So I can mention that also.
Yeah, you can mention that. Yeah, same thing for me. Also, I also had Datadog. So I told them when I joined my previous company, that is 3 years ago. It was 3 years of experience in my resume. So I told them when I joined the company, we used to have an on-prem environment, but after that, we did some migration and moved our repositories to ADO, and so then we started using New Relic. So I have a very basic knowledge on Datadog, but I'm familiar with the UI and whatever the files is. So same thing you can say for the New Relic.
Daman, you have shown a screen share and they asked for something, right? 2 days time they have given you Azure Monitor, right?
Yeah.
Monitor. So how you handled that one when you're showing it like that interview, final interview experience?
So for the Azure monitoring, I know they're gonna ask the questions about Azure monitoring. So in Udemy, I type Azure monitor, and I studied. I watched every video for Azure monitor, Azure Sentinel, log analytics workspace, and application insights. Because I don't know what kind of environment they had. So these are the four most important stuff for Azure monitoring specifically. Again, I'm going to say that is Log Analytics Workspace, Application Insights, and Azure. So in the interview, they showed me their environment and they were using Azure Container Apps. And they said, uh, okay, now how will you monitor? This is our application, how you'll monitor it. So I was clueless that how to do it. I say, okay, let's go to the monitoring section. But if you go on the container app, any apps, if you go to the monitoring section, there is nothing. You can't even find that section. So I was like, okay, there is no section. Then I saw there is a Azure Container App environment. Then you go to the Azure Container App environment and then you go there. Again, when I go there, there is no diagnostic settings and there was no log analytics workspace. I was again clueless, like what to do. Then I asked him, so to make everything work, you need to install an agent on it, whether it's a VM or anything, you need to install an agent. But again, it's a container. You cannot install the whole agent on each and every container. It's not going to work. So then slowly I figured out that it's not going to work like this. So I asked him what other services. So you can question that. Okay, this is here. I told them this point needs to be an agent who's reporting to the log analytics workspace or anything. So I said the agent is not here. So there is a catch here. What you guys other services you guys are using? Then he told me that they are using APIs for the security. So then I knew this that what is APIs and for the APIs you need APIMs. That's the most important stuff in Azure. If you're using in any APIs, it has to go through APIMs. So that's an additional security step. Then I went to APIMs, and that's how in your APIs you define the rules to send the logs to like whatever space you want. So that's the third point I can't figure out, but the second point I figured out that it's not the container apps, it's the container app environment. So yeah, it was. I thought they're not gonna hire me, but after like half an hour, they called me. They're like, "Okay, you answered the questions," and yeah, that's how I got a job.
Hi, Daman. Vani here.
Hi,
Um, Congrats
thank you.
on your job. Just want to know the day-to-day activities that you do as an SRE,
Mhm.
and what is the thing that you have really learned in the first 30 days? How you have handled the first 30 days of your job?
So if it comes to day-to-day activities, in my team, like I said, I work with a DevOps team. My manager, it's a DevOps manager, and I'm the first SRE in this company. So for the SRE, it's closely related to DevOps, but to this point, because I'm very new, so we handle deployment. So my personal job is to set up the whole dashboard. So we did the migration of our all the codes from on-prem to Azure. So my response, and we are hosting some application, all of our new applications to Azure environment, Azure portal. So my responsibility is how to make the configuration files and how to send the data for all those container app environment to the whether it's in application insights. So that's my responsibility to figure out whether I want log analytics workspace, for what reasons, what's the data ingestion, how much data we want, how to optimize cost. And again, for the DevOps, and as I schedule deployments. So applications, we for our applications, we use like blue green deployment for Azure, but for the rest of the on-prem applications, we just schedule them during off hours around like 9 p.m. So I generally start my job at 3 p.m. to schedule the deployments. We are using Octa Deploy. We are not for the CI/CD, Team CD, and Octa Deploy. First 30 days, if we talk about first 30 days, first 2 weeks, it was like pretty easy. I don't have any access. They give you time. They just introduce you to the teams, and after that, they give you just very small tasks. They're not gonna give you like so many tasks at once, unless and until you feel comfortable. For 1 week, I was shadowing a person, and that how they do their job. And yeah, it was going pretty easy. I used to freak out. What if I don't know this thing? But everybody, like, if there is a senior person, especially if it's a white person, that's gonna be like really amazing experience, I would say. They're gonna make you so much comfortable. They're gonna teach you everything from scratch. Okay, that's how you host servers. And again, my job is to reset application pools. And if everything is not, if HTTPS to create a certificate. So we have an internal authority to sign our own certificates, root certificates, and we use DigiCert for the external hosting applications. So I
Uh,
create certificates, renew them. That's what I do.
so sorry to disturb. So like how you guys do the certificate renewal? Is it a automated process or mm, you do it manually?
So for the certificates, it's a different. If it's an application, it's gonna you're gonna keep this application for a very long time, so we do it, okay, renewal. But there are many internal applications. Sometimes it's in just the dev. Now the project has been abandoned, so we don't automate everything for the certificates, because it's gonna cost you money, right, if you're gonna just keep automating. So we have to go in there and we have to see whether we need this application or not. And if the project is for like gonna go for 6 months or 1 year, then we do it manually, again, because it's going to add the cost. And for internal, uh, all thing we do manually, because if you automate the internal certificate, that's not going to work. The reason being, there are so many changes in the POC environment, because it's just a proof of concept, right? The
Yeah.
out of 20, you need only 5, so you need to delete the rest of the certificates. That's why we do.
So I mean, like, so you ask the teams to provide the CSRs for you, and you'll be getting the CSRs, and you'll be using that to get the certificate, or how does it work? Or
No,
you have
so
to do everything?
I have to create a CSR. So if a PFX, sometimes there are very confidential information. So I ask the team to give me. I give them the PFX file. I don't. They don't know anything about CSR. So I'm the one who go into the server where we are hosting the applications. So you log in into the server. You create a request. So certificate request, and then you renew the certificate. Then you verify it. But if a company doesn't give you the access to the server, but luckily as an SRE I have, but sometimes they don't give you the access and they say, okay, we're not going to do this. Then you just create a PFX file, which is just a certificate which includes private and public key. You enter a password, okay, it's going to be installed. So you're responsible for even creating a request.
Okay. And how about the external certifications from DigiCert?
So for that, it's a DigiCert we use. It's a If someone and ask you why you use DigiCert, you
No,
can
no,
say
no,
you can use Cloudflare. And for even for that, it's a very easy process, because it's not, we don't have to sign the root certificate. We're just building a trust. So you just go there and communicate that my certificate is expiring. I want to automate this. Don't want to automate this. For DigiCert, it's pretty easy, because you don't have to really do much work. You just go to the DigiCert portal and you say, okay, I want to renew this certificate for a year or so, everything, and they do everything for you.
Yeah,
You know.
I've worked with the DigiCert portal, but
Hmm.
back when I was working, we used to do things manually. So we used to get CSRs from the uh, other teams, like my application teams, and we used to renew it. So so right now, are you guys doing with automation, or how does it happen?
Yes, right now we are doing like 70% of our certificates are automated, because that's a main domain we have. So we are using the automation most of the time in DigiCert, especially.
So have you had any chance to explore like how what's happening in the back end, like how the certificates are the CSRs are getting from the server, or
So for the DigiCert, not yet. Again, I'm more into the internal certificates for now. So didn't get a
Okay.
chance to work on that right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Daman, hi.
Hi.
I heard like you are actually, I mean, when you're telling you're part of the migration process from on-prem to cloud, right?
Yeah.
So, are you guys are actually using any strategy to do that? And first question is that, and the second question is like, do we have the multiple teams working together in the migration process? Else, you need to be in the form of like architecting the team. I mean, if we are actually moving from on-prem to cloud, we need to actually provide. I mean, what type of architecture we want actually and everything. So you gonna take care of that, or else we have like multiple teams to handle that.
So moving to cloud from on-prem to cloud, it's a very complex process. It's a first of all, it's a very complex process, and right now we moved all of our repositories. So whatever the code we had, uh, we are, we have moved that to ADO. Again, that's a ADO on-prem as well as on cloud. I was not aware of that. I don't know, I was not aware of that stuff, that you can use Azure DevOps on-prem as well, just to store your repositories. So we moved them to cloud. That's the first thing. That's the first part. So every developer, so whosoever is responsible, let's say I have an application ABC or XYZ, then developers from ABC will be responsible if you are an SRE or DevOps. So the developers will be responsible for moving that code from they create a Git repository, then you connect it to ADO. That's how you host your repositories on cloud. So what your responsibility is that to create a pipeline. So whatever the code developers will pick, pull or push, it goes to the cloud. For the migration part, as a first job, we're not going to do it. It's the director of the applications and the manager. So they cut off the server from after certain time, like we did at 5 p.m., and then we copied and moved. We use Azure Data Factory to move all our codes, and then it took like us 12 hours to move all of our code. The next day around 5 p.m. we finished, and then we have to make sure that each and every pipeline is working fine. That means you have to change the configuration files. You have to, like, from where you're pulling the code, most of the code gonna stay the same, but
Mhm.
you have to change the configuration files. That's our job. So multiple team is involved in migration. And if you talk about the application hosting servers, so we moved some of our VMs from VMware to cloud, but mostly in my company, they are focusing to move everything from on-prem to the containers, like Azure Container Apps, because you don't have to worry about managing the node like in Kubernetes or something. So Azure provide that functionality. So we are not moving all of our applications from on-prem VM, like on VMware, to the cloud version of the VMs. We are just slowly moving to Azure Container Apps, and it's gonna take around like 3 to 5 years. So migration, it takes like a couple of.
It's only the platform replatforming you're doing. No refactoring of the code. Nothing has been. I mean, it depends upon like what we are doing it over there, right? Only the platform change you did. I mean, from on-prem to cloud, like whatever we are actually using the servers and everything, the provisioning on the cloud gonna, I mean, remain same. It's only the
I mean,
platform change.
the strategy, yeah, that's the strategy. Which strategy did you guys use for the, you know,
They were already doing
migration?
it. I'm not pretty sure about. They were already doing it when I came here, so
Hmm.
they were
Oh,
about.
you are part of the planning team, right? That's, I mean, my question, my whole point of asking this question is like you're part of that. I mean, they were expecting something from us when we are actually doing the migration process.
Mhm.
Because the questions raised, like when we are actually going for the interviews, like how you gonna provision the infrastructure, like like what steps we gonna do it, what I mean, how we gonna do that, and whenever DB migration if we are doing, what is the capacity, what is the size, and how we gonna decide like which one to use, what and when. So these all questions have been raised. So I'm just curious to know, like, we'll be like part of the planning team, right?
So yes, you can only, but as a DevOps engineer or as an SRE, you don't decide about the what's going to be the capacity. It's the architect job. It's an infrastructure team job. So if you have an experience in infrastructure, that's a team who handle this stuff. That's a There is a totally separate database team. They tell you what kind of they need, because we are moving from Oracle to SQL, but
Mhm.
right now it's not our job. So even if you are a DevOps engineer, you there is no way you're going to be part of the team, like even part of the planning. That's going to be your director of applications who's going to be part of that team. He pass the knowledge to your manager. Then you might know about it, but you're not going to be the part of any kind of a planning for database or for any if any kind of stuff like this thing. No, at least in my organization, that's how they're working. I don't know how other organizations work. That
Uh,
you have to be like cloud engineer for that, not a DevOps engineer. So DevOps engineer has a totally separate role as compared to a cloud engineer. So they are the part of this thing, not the DevOps engineer. You are
okay.
solely responsible for CI/CD.
Well, clear about that. Okay, then in that case, what's the role of the DevOps engineer? Like, what exactly they're gonna do in this migration process?
So you have to make sure that all the pipelines, they are working fine. So whatever the code developer is pushing to the, like, whatever the repositories we have. So when
Mhm.
developer pushes the code, you're responsible for the build. And the build is, for example, if you're using .NET, then you have to create several templates. Because if it's a SDK, .NET 6, .NET 5, .NET 7, you have to maintain these servers. So different servers host different applications. If you're using .NET 8 on one and .NET 6 on one, then you are responsible to understand how actually building process works. What kind of a different thing you need? MS build for this. You need ASP.NET for that. Like, what is your infrastructure? Because the developers, they write code in C sharp, but the .NET understanding, as a DevOps engineer, you need to have it. So first, you build the code. You are responsible to create an artifact, and that's different steps. If you are hosting as a batch app, then it has a different build steps. If you are hosting it as a website, then you have a different steps, right? That's what you do for the first. Second, you write templates to deploy the application. So after artifact is created, whether it's like Azure DevOps pipeline or what we are using is TeamCity to build and Octo to deploy. Then you use that artifact and you use different templates, and you create different templates to host the applications on that server. So if you're using IIS to host a service, right, on a on a machine, that's what you do. So on IIS, what are the different steps? You create application pool, you create bindings, you have to raise a request for DNS. You should know uh, whether there is another server, like we have a reporting server, then you have to report to that server. So all those steps you mentioned during the deployment of your application from an artifact. So that's a basic role of a DevOps engineer.
Thank you.
So, Daman, what's the percentage of Bash scripting, Python, all these in your work right now? How
So
much percent? I mean,
our applications are .NET 6, so that is most window based. So we are using PowerShell to do the scripting. So our each template have around 6 to 7 steps, whether it's a batch applications or we are hosting web applications. So we are using PowerShell scripts to write those deployment or TeamCity build scripts. That's what we do. And trust me, guys, it sounds like it's a big deal, but most of the work will be already done. so you can refer to those projects and learn very quick. That's what I did. I was never, I couldn't even write earlier when I joined the company 4 PowerShell lines in a row. I couldn't do that. If any one of you can do it, that's like really, really good. To tell you how the real scenarios, everything will be done in an organization by the senior people. I'm the like youngest in my organization. In my team, everyone is working since I was not even born then. So I'm working with those senior people. So everything is set up for you. You just have to make changes. And when they ask you to create something new, you already have a reference of the previous projects, what they did. So you can take a reference from them. Once you did 2 or 3 projects or 2 or 3 tasks, you will be comfortable. So they're not gonna ask you to build something from scratch right away.
Hi, so can you just tell the daily routine for yourself? I mean, as if an interviewer asks what's your daily routine being a
Mhm.
DevOps engineer, can you just tell in a sentence how it goes?
Yeah, for sure. So once I start my day, first I go up, check all of like the emails regarding to the monitoring. If I have any alerts or anything, I go to New Relic. We have created a workloads in a New Relic, so we see everything is working fine. Check out the emails. That's my first thing. Then every other day of like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have a meeting for on-prem, that is daily stand-ups, that what are the tasks we have to do. I'm a part of a daily sprints. That's what we do on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And after that, immediately we hop into another call, that is we call it Cloud Rush. Whatever new applications we are hosting on cloud using containers and Azure functions, so we discuss about that who's gonna work. Then during the rest of the day, I ease out and try to understand more about the infrastructure, read about it, because for me as a new person, I get like 1.5 hour every day to study the infrastructure, and then I study about Azure Container Apps and the monitoring environment. Then by the end of the day, or by the end of the week, sometimes I have to I'm creating a dashboard for Azure Container Apps. So I research about that. I play around with the POC environment and create stuff. During the day, there are many deployments. Like we deploy every day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sorry, every other day. So we deploy, and I'm responsible for scheduling the deployment. So I start around 2:30 to 3. Schedule deployments and whatever the request we have. And in the meanwhile, we have a request for maybe someone is new to the organization. So we have to give them the permissions to different repositories, manage the team, and how do you create different Azure boards. Azure boards, it's a very big deal for every organization. I spend nearly 1.5 hour every day just on Azure boards, because you should know what is epic, what is feature, what is the user story, how do you create a child, what area path. I was not even aware what is area path is, but if you create an area path, then the team is created. People will, if as a DevOps engineer, lots and lots of people will reach out to you that they have a permission to view it, but they don't have a permission to like change or create any task. So my responsibility is to give them this permission to oversee that. And finally, 4 hours of my day I spend on creating city and octopus, like I mean CI/CD. I spend most of my day on that.
All right, so there is a follow-up question.
Please.
I mean, when you give the permissions, like for example, if you're giving permissions to someone, is it like some ticket kind of thing they have to raise, or they will directly contact you?
Yes, we are using Sharewell to raise a ticket, but sometimes that's again a thing. If anyone is showing, yeah, like any of you is showing that you have a hybrid environment, then please be aware of the on-prem AD and like ADO permissions. If they want a request to permissions to the cloud version, they just click on the link, it doesn't work. As a DevOps or as an SRE, you will get an email. So you have to respond to that email by giving them the necessary permissions. But if they need some kind of organize, because on cloud you have different organizations. If they need access on the organization level, they have to raise a ticket. We are using Sharewell as a tool for ticketing. There is a ticket there, and on daily basis, I solve that and give the permission through AD.
So the permissions which will be given, so
Yeah.
you mentioned one will be the organization level ticket and
Yeah.
another will be the team level, right? Like the each team, they have their
Even
own.
on the team level, you have like for us around, even in single team, you have 10 different roles to give, and each role have a group. For team leads, that's a different, they can uh, add a task in a Azure boards, and there is a reader role, contributors, team leads, dev, like for developers, they can push the code. Even they push the code, only the managers can uh, merge that code. So there are so many kind of permissions. Everything gonna be specified in a ticket. It's very clear. So they're gonna tell you which permission to give and when.
Okay. Okay. So the junior people who is in the organization, they don't really, I mean, they don't really deal with the permissions and all, right? There will be
No, they
senior
do.
people who will be giving the permissions.
That's the first thing, like that was my task, one of the first thing, to give
Okay.
permissions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
you'll be handling the permissions.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, hi Daman, this is Mahesh.
Hi, Manish.
So what I was saying is that you mentioned that you do the deployments every other day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, why are you doing deployments every other day? Like, what are the kind of requirements that you normally take to do that deployments? That's the question.
So for the deployments, like developers are constantly changing the applications. So in my organization, they have around 30 applications that is on the for the customers. But on the development side, they have so many applications and there are so many functions they are adding. Maybe just a switch, maybe just they're changing the color or something. So for that, everything has to be deployed, whether it's a dev environment or the prod. So if it's a dev environment, there are going to be so many deployments. So every other day, that's why we do every other day. So we have an application that's called Insights. For example, let's take it. For Insights, if they added any functionality, so every other day they come up with something, any new functionality. One Monday it's fleet, one day it's insight. So every week, I would say one application needs a change on the development level, not to the like customer side, not the customer facing, but on the development, just to for the testing purposes. So I schedule the deployment that right now, we're not going to deploy right now, otherwise the server has to go down and then you can deploy the application. So I schedule because I don't have to come at night, right, to deploy. So I write a script, or I don't write it. I just take a template, schedule a deployment that it's going to be happening 9 p.m. tonight. And that's what we do. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting, Daman. Even for the environments like dev environments, test environments, for those also you will be scheduled for deploying, or will you do whenever they need the changes to the lower
No,
environments?
no. So no one in my organization, at least, and most of the organization my friends work, no one do the deployment whenever they want, because for that we need something. What if this thing goes down? So when it's busy during the day, we don't do it. We usually do it after 9 p.m. or at 9 p.m.
Oh, for lower environments also, if they
Even
requested
for the
to do.
dev QA or yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And will you be live and watching the deployments when they're going, or you
No,
just
so
postpone it?
deploy, you schedule a deployment and it's gonna go at 9. If the deployment fails, like you will get a, if you're an SRE, you'll get a phone from a company, and that if the deployment fail, you will get a call. That's an automated process. We call it pager duty. So pager duty will give you a call that, hey, your deployment failed. Then you come and that you have to check. And it's not me. Every in 2 months, it's you get a responsibility for 2 weeks. So everyone goes on call for 2 weeks, and who's on call from your team, they will respond. If the deployment failed, they'll see, oh, why the deployment failed. If it's a code-based issue, that goes back to the developer or something. If it's a connection string problem, it's your problem. Then you have to see what connection string failing, and if application pool, what's this, if the CPU percentage it's not holding. So depending upon that, but it's not you have to sit and see. It's just a call you get.
Which one is you are using for the deploying purpose right now, like Ansible or radio for
For
lawyer
deployment, we're
lawyer
using
environments?
Octa deploy.
Okay.
Yep.
Daman, Mohan here. On the application level, what metrics you are currently monitoring, and how you will troubleshoot? Like, what are the daily troubleshooting tasks you'll get, or like whenever you get?
So most important, there are 5 metrics that we monitor. That is the throughput, the error rate, the response time, and in the error rate, what kind of a HTTP code you're getting. So what kind of a status code? If it's 500, 404, 401, uh, that's the most important stuff. And as I mentioned earlier in the call, for as an SRE, you should be very efficient, or we should be very efficient in finding the exact root cause of the error as soon as we can. For that, we need distributed tracing. So distributed tracing or stack trace, it's all about the user clicked. For example, I go to Google Chrome, I click on google.com. So whatever the pages I'm doing one by one after that, so distributed tracing tell you that you can find the exact spot where your application is failing. Maybe it's connection to the database. Database is taking so much time to respond. So in the New Relic or in any monitoring tool, you will find out, okay, this at this point, I'm getting 50 seconds of response time, like from this thing. It's a ASP.NET. It's a developer problem. Then you reach out to developer as soon as you can, and then you do that stuff. So
Okay. Yeah,
so
understood.
stack tracing, distributed tracing is the most important for monitoring, I'd say, to find the error or the root cause of
Yeah.
a response time or something.
And how
Yeah,
often do you get these errors?
Oh, for the production, in maybe 1 in 2 months for the production, but in dev and QA, it's gonna be like every hour, because in dev they're gonna be testing a lot of stuff. Again, as an SRE, it's your responsibility to fine tune it. You don't want any noise in your infrastructure. So if your error rate is 2.5 in dev, you're gonna get like 1,000 emails in a day, because their error rate is like around 50%, because they're testing new things. So it's your responsibility to go back, write some queries in any monitoring, if it's log analytics workspace or anything. That's how logs come into handy. So you write queries to see how your historic application is doing, and then you set alerts and the threshold level according to that. That's how you do that stuff.
Did you handle this HTTP 500 internal server error issue anytime? Did you handle?
Yeah, it was like that is the
Can
most
you tell
common.
me the process? I mean, can you
Mhm.
tell me the process? How do you handle, like, if the
Yeah.
server HTTP 500 server?
For the dev environment, as a DevOps, or again for my role, connection string comes under my responsibilities. So if you get 500 error, like first your error rate is high, you will get emails that application is not responding or something. Then you go and to the any monitoring tool, you find the distributed traces, and then at a point you'll see your Oracle or any kind of a database that is not responding. Okay, you reach out to the database team, and they'll see and they will tell you, it's not you who figure out everything. Then you'll reach out to database team that, hey, this particular database server is not responding, can you find the root cause? They'll tell you, oh, it's the connection string. If it's a connection string, then you have to ask them a questions. It's the connection string failing, it's not accepting the new new connections, or it's after making a connection, the connection string it's still active, like the connection is still there. So these are the three basic problems that every time I see. If the connection string after making a connection and that query is still there, what you have to do is go to the server, recycle the application pool, and it will delete all the old connections, and you'll be good to go. That's how you manage the first one. That's a thing you can tell even in the interview. That's how you figure out. You reach out to database team, they tell you connection string is not there will be like 8,000 connection strings at one time, and then you realize it's so wrong. Even for one application, even if for like whole environment, 8,000 connection strings, it's not possible. So what you do is you recycle the application pool and you bring down the number from 8,000 to 400, because by recycling the application pool, every connection which has been already made, that query and that process get deleted, because people are already using it. You don't need it anymore. So that is
Uh, will it be a firewall issue as well when the finder server error will comes?
for the basically that not gonna come, because firewall you use in like production. So usually it doesn't come in the like, because everything is tested in dev and then QA, then it goes to the prod. So we
So
don't
basically, I have to tell them like I'll check the monitoring and I'll see the distributed traces,
Yeah.
and I'll see whether the database is not responding or not, and I have to just connect with the database team, and
Yeah, then you
this is
troubleshoot
how I
yourself.
need to. What about other errors that you find, like 400, 401, such errors?
For 404, it's something usually if the server is down, you display on the 404. Nobody wants 404, so that is not found. So that is the application is wrong. So sometimes even if you go, I don't know how many of you watch sports. So if you go to espn.go, it's gonna lead you to espn.com. That's how our applications work, and even with the Google, that's also works. So we transfer the simple domain to the actual domain. That's what we do. Most of the companies do. We are arifleet.com. We are using as now we are redirecting those arifleet.com to holman.com. So if you say someone is reaching to our old application and they're getting 404, that is the application that it's not exist, that means something is wrong with the redirecting rules. So you go to the Cloudflare, we are using Cloudflare for that. Then you see, oh, Cloudflare, it's not working. Maybe A records or C records are not working properly, or something is misconfigured. So then you deal with that stuff. So 404 for that. For 401 in dev, I used to freak out. Oh, I get in so many 401s. 401 is for unauthorized access, but that is okay. They're trying new things and for dev. But in the production, me personally set up the if 401 if you see from similar IP address, if you see more than 10 401s, then you should raise an alert. So 401 for unauthorized access for the production environment. And just to give you a little tip, that's for all of you. If you can use DMZ word that to hosting your production servers. So what DMZ is, that's a tip for everyone. I didn't knew about it, but it's really helpful. I told one of my friend, and yeah, that is a really nice term. It's demilitarized zone. So most of the companies, they are using DMZ servers. So DMZ server is they are connected. We are hosting our applications on DMZ so that the external people can connect to that servers. But those servers, there is only one connection those servers bring to our internal servers. So whatever we do, create applications, host it internally, dev QA, it's on our internal servers. But with the DMZ, you put all the firewalls. So that is the term you use for prod servers.
Is it a like proxy servers?
No, it's not a proxy servers. It's just like DMZ servers. That is you don't monitor those servers, you don't like monitor. I mean, you don't keep similar kind of rules on those servers as compared to your internal servers. For internal servers, you'll be using IP addresses like 10 dot something something, but for those, it's gonna be 192 dot something something, right? So there are totally different set of rules for prod servers. That's why you just call them DMZ, and there is a totally different set of rules for development and QA servers. So we call them internal to dev QA and DMZ to the prod.
Daman, you're leaving. I mean, can you answer these 3 questions they posted here? And
So yeah.
as an SRE, how do you manage huge amount of logs in real time?
So for managing the logs, you just have to make sure that your how many logs you're getting in a day, as per the, if you're getting maybe around 500K logs, that is fine from all the application. That is okay. But if you're getting more logs, more than that, that means you're increasing the noise in the environment, and it's going to be a extra cost for the company. Then for, like I said, yeah, then you have to reduce the logs. How you can do it, you go to the configuration files of any application that is reporting to your monitoring tools, and you exclude some of the errors. I can give you example of New Relic. For dev environment, I usually don't care about 404s, so I've excluded all of them. Any kind of a system exceptions, that is, oh, I cannot connect to, or any kind of a system exception, we don't care about the dev or the QA environment. So you go there, you exclude those. You're not getting any logs for that. It's gonna save you a lot of space and a lot of money. And that's how you do that in AWS AD things. Yes, so you can any kind of a on-prem and cloud AD, they connect seamlessly. First on-prem, they sync perfectly. So honestly, if that's a question, there is no issue. Yeah, there is no issue. That's on-prem AD. It's totally fine with cloud Active Directory. Last question again, I think, yeah, it's from my about the C++. So for .NET, usually you use C#, not C++. Again, man, I'm pretty new. I'm not pretty sure, but in my organization, again, it's C#. All of the time, it's C#, not .NET. And you don't need to have understanding about how C# code works. You need to understand how .NET framework works. So what is .NET Core? What is .NET 7? What is .NET 8? Again, .NET 7, nobody use it. Either you use .NET 6 or you use .NET 8. So if you have any interviews, don't mention .NET 7. No industry practice that. Recently, people are moving to .NET 8, but I have 7 friends now. No one is using .NET 7. That's not good. So if you're in your experience, tell them .NET 6. And that's being said, you only need to understand how the framework works. So when you build your code, any kind of a .NET in a .NET framework using MS Build, then how it actually works, you don't need any understanding about the C# code, like not even ABC of that.
So Daman, I have one SIE interview coming up.
Yeah.
Can I just message you or call you for
Like anytime, that would be
kind of
like
a, if I get doubts?
whatever like I know, I'll be happy to share. Trust me, guys, I'm also one of that person who worries way too much, way too much. So I
Yeah.
totally understand, and
Yeah.
more than happy to help.
Thank you.
Whatever I know, I'll help.
Thanks, Daman.